The excommunicator. Origen's clashes with his bishop show how the church was developing its internal discipline. But who watches the watchmen? Who bishops the bishops? That was a tricky question. For Irenaeus of Lyon, the answer was clear. The faithful everywhere must agree with the church at Rome. Since re-establishing itself after the Neronian persecution, the Roman churches had been led by a collegiate group of bishops. An early Christian visionary dream story called The Shepherd of Hermas was written in Rome and implies that there was a group of presbyter bishops in charge. This is significant because the author's brother, Pius, was Bishop of Rome, and if he'd been the head honcho, his brother would have said so. Possibly the first solo Bishop of Rome was Anicetus. That's between 155 and 166 AD. But it was probably one of his ancestors. So, I'm awful today. It's probably one of his successors, Victor, who was the first proper Bishop of Rome, in the sense of someone who was really in charge. It was Victor who invented the main sanction of the church, excommunication. He was chosen as Bishop of Rome around 189 and held the post for 10 years. By that time it had become the custom for the bishop to bless the Eucharistic bread and wine, and then send it out to churches throughout the city in a kind of divine pizza delivery service. The consecrated bread and wine went to a wide variety of churches, some of which were decidedly unorthodox. Imagine today if the Anglican church in your town had consecrated bread and wine delivered to the other churches by courier. Unthinkable. Anyway, Victor decided that must stop. He refused to have it delivered to Montanist or other dodgy churches. It meant that they could no longer receive the official communion. They were excommunicated. It was probably Victor who made the switch from Greek to Latin for the language of worship in Rome as well. By now the influence of Greek was waning everywhere. Only one Greek prayer remained in the Latin liturgy, the Kyrie. Not to be confused with the Kylie, which is an Australian prayer. The ancient Greek Kyrie runs Kyrie eleison, Christi eleison, Kyrie eleison. Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, Lord have mercy. Victor was a monarchical bishop, a single leader over the whole church. But he wasn't the Pope. The earliest mention of that title doesn't occur until 100 years after his time. It comes from the Greek papas, meaning little father. And then it is applied not to the Bishop of Rome, but to a deacon in the city. Up until the 800s, the title of Pope could be applied to any senior member of the Christian community. Madmen. Rome, of course, had one thing the other cities did not have. The emperor, at this time, a man called Commodus. He kept a harem of 300 beautiful women and another of 300 boys. He was a man of eclectic tastes, not to mention stamina. Intriguingly, the administrator of his harem, a eunuch named Hyacinthus, was also a cleric in his local church. Not many people in history have managed to combine two such different jobs. Some medieval popes would have a go, but that's for later. But Commodus went mad. He became convinced that he was Hercules, and started to perform in character in the arena, fighting both against wild animals and as a gladiator. According to the records, he entered 735 fights and was victorious in every single one of them. Then again, he was the emperor. Nonetheless, all winning streaks must come to an end. On the 31st of December, 192, he was strangled in his bath by a man who had been a champion wrestler. What this wrestler was doing in his bath, or how he was hidden, we don't know. Perhaps he used a snorkel, or disguised himself as a particularly large rubber duck. Anyway, according to the histories, the wrestler was working for the emperor's favourite concubine, a woman called Marcia, who was also alleged to be a Christian. Now, we do have to take this claim with rather a large chunk of bath salts, given that she was involved with at least one judicial execution before the assassination of Commodus. She's what you'd call a fringe Christian. She also poisoned the emperor's food, but he vomited it up. So they had to switch to plan B. That's B as in bath. But she was sympathetic to Christians at least, and she knew Victor. It was through her influence that he managed to gain the release of a group of Christians who were being forced to work in a Sardinian copper mine. Anyway, after a brief civil war, a new emperor arose, from North Africa this time. His name was Septimus Severus. He died in York in 211. His last words were "Eu bargum," possibly. Here is his advice to his successors. Be united, enrich the soldiers, and scorn the rest. From now on, even more than before, being an emperor was not about legitimacy and birth, but about the support of the army. But that cost money. Taxes were hiked to raise funds. To avoid paying the punitive taxes, many people fled the towns and turned to banditry. The rise in banditry meant you needed more soldiers, and that meant more taxes, and, well, you get the idea. The currency collapsed. Many Romans turned to barter. Even the soldiers demanded to be given their pay in kind. It was all a bit of a decline.